Well, good morning. It is Monday at more or less 10, just a couple minutes late. Yep, I missed Friday, had the heat pump installed, and it's currently pumping heat, which is good because it's pretty cold here right now. I mean, not like below freezing, but it's like 42 degrees or something, which is, too cold to be inside at 42 degrees. So anyway, yeah, it's Monday. The heat pump is on, but the disruption, there was more disruption that lasted longer than I was hoping. And so instead of streaming on Friday, I spent most of the day Friday putting the studio back together again. So it seems to be together. Yeah. It's me. Hi. And then the thing I'm working on. The microphone's working. Okay. Stuff seems to be working. So happy Monday. The other thing that happened is that I'm kind of dog watching over the weekend. And so if I have to suddenly stop, and go check on whatever's going on with them upstairs because they're alone right now, that just might have to happen. So I'll just let you know ahead of time that there's that possibility. So I'm working on the Savoia S.21. This is Porco Rosso's plane. It comes complete with a Porco Rosso minifig. I was able, while the heat pump was being installed, fortunately last Wednesday and Thursday were warm enough, so only got moderately cold in the house, but I was able to get some priming done. And so today I've got a bunch of just sort of disjointed little stuff to do that, I'll just sort of get to it. None of it has to do with the inside of this box right now. What I've got to do, things to do here is I've got the Porco Rosso figure primed. And I've got the painting directions here. I don't have the sitted one done. This is the standing one, the standalone. And as you can see, the painting directions, there's a lot of different colors, okay? And they're all in Japanese, but there's this handy dandy color translation chart that turns them all into Tamiya colors. And I was able to find out what each of these was by looking at their color chart. And I got the paints. And so at some point, I should actually be able to start painting Porco Rosso. Because I believe I do have all the colors that are necessary. So the first thing, as you remember, I was working on was the cart. Okay, the cart was actually almost the last thing, nearly the last thing in the instructions. It's a little cart here, because this is a seaplane. If it's going to be on land, it doesn't have any wheels, so it sits on this cart. And all these pieces are together. They're all sanded, they're filled in, all the gaps are gone. So I'm going to paint the cart today, I hope. Let's see, I'm not going to use the colors that they say here. I'm going to use the same colors. See how nicely this turned out? It's one of our dungeon tiles. I'm going to use the same base color and smoky ink wash on the cart. So the cart's going to look like this, right? And I've got those. So it's going to be a multi-step process because it's bottom and top. And then there's detail on here that needs to be painted on. There's the little handles. Okay, those are going to be painted metallic. There's a plate here that holds together the X that has to be painted metallic. And then there are these, can't really see them very well, but there's a square around each of these holes. These holes are where the wheels go, and those are like metal brackets that are reinforcements for where the wheels attach. So I'm going to, paint this top and bottom. Probably do the bottom first and then the top. And I was debating, and I'm continuing to debate, whether to paint the metal bits first before I do all the rest of this, or paint the base coat and the wash first. And I'm pretty much decided I'm going to do the wood part first, and then take my chances and hope I don't have to do touching up. So there's that. This is the whole thing is going to be that wood color, except for the tops here. The very tops of these things are not wood. They're painted a different color. They're painted number 44. Number 44 is deck tan. Deck tan is kind of a grayish brown color. And I'm assuming that those are painted deck tan because it's like a canvas topper or something that goes on top of the wood, so that it doesn't scratch up the hull. So there's many steps to getting this done. Base coating it, washing it, painting the deck tan bits, painting the metallic bits, and then attaching the wheels. Here are the wheels. These got painted before. And we should probably fit these first, right? Because if they don't fit, then that's an issue. So that fits there. I'm going to paint the hubs a slightly darker color so that one can see the hubs. Metallic parts on this, like this bracket and these brackets and stuff, I want to paint the same color as the wheels. I think that's a pretty good color. It's a Dur aluminum. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing first. I guess what I'm going to do first is, and then there's another thing. I've talked about this before. The hull of the plane here, which holds a lot of detailed stuff. The top of the plane comes off to reveal the interior detail. It's got these circles, and these circles show, and these circles are not like an original part of the plane. They're just there because that's how they were molded in. And if they were raised, I could sand them off, but they're inset, so I can't sand them off. So I was thinking, well, maybe I'll fill them with something, but I don't have a good filler. So our DM suggested, why not try epoxy? I've got some decent epoxy. I can fill that with epoxy and then sand it down because the epoxy sands pretty well. Okay. It's not a perfect solution, but I'm going to test it. I want to test it on something that doesn't show very much. Because if it goes poorly, okay, then that's a concern. So this ends up going on here like that. And you can still see the circles through it, and certainly the ones on the front and the back. So I'm going to test the epoxy theory on these circles here. So if it goes poorly, they'll be kind of covered up. They also are the shallowest of them. So if it's going to work on this, it's going to work. Those are the things I'm hoping to do today. I'm also these are radiators that go inside with the detail here. Have I cleaned these up yet? No, I haven't even cleaned up all the sprue marks and everything on these, so that's something else to do. I've got a lot of stuff to do here, all sorts of little stuff that needs to be done that I will start working on doing. I guess I'm going to paint the bottom of the cart first and let that dry. Try some. I'm going to test something. Hold on. It's just like, how am I going to hold this, right? When I wash it, it's one thing to get the base color on, because if I do the bottom and then that, but I want to wash the whole thing all at once somehow. And that means holding it somehow. Under get this. Yeah, I can do it that way. I am. In fact, I might do that with the base color too. I could paint the whole thing. This is a thing that just might work. These are toothpicks. Okay, use toothpicks a lot. Take these off. These are fine for seeing intermediate and distance, but not good for close up. Standing off edges here so it fits in the hole. And that's pretty solid. I can paint all around that, and then I very carefully cleaned up the workbench. You know, everything had to come off the workbench. Everything had to come off, and some stuff was disassembled, and then put it back together. And I'm looking for right where I put it. I put it so I could easily find it, and of course I couldn't find it. Right, getting rid of these little pointy bits. Going to be that kind of day, isn't it? Okay, so this is good. They're in there. They're not in the way because they're in a thing that they're going to be painting metallic. And then when I'm waiting for it to dry, alligator clip on there, and my handy dandy alligator clip holder thing. Vintage block of wood. Anyway, that'll hold it well enough while it dries. And this way I can paint the base color on the whole thing. I actually thought of something in this on a Monday that will probably end up working. It was kind of a shock. Okay, so this will work. I'll be able to paint the base coat on this whole thing. I'll let it dry and then I'll check it, because it's quite possible that when painting large surfaces like this, it's possible to miss bits. While that's drying, then I'll paint the hubs of the wheels. The inside. That'll be fine. Just the epoxy, prep these pieces that all need to be sanded and filed, and then these get glued together. And then it's the same issue as with the seams. Remember, the sanding down the edges so that the seams don't show. Yeah, I did a lot of prep work on this. It took like an hour, I don't know, forever. Hours it felt like of sanding and filing and stuff to get this. And I hope the painting turns out okay. And the other thing I want to do is this. This is all supposed to be painted this new color that I just bought, desert yellow. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that the desert yellow is a nice flat color that's going to look very flat. And I want to test different washes on it because this is actually wood. It's not wood, it's plastic. It's supposed to look like wood. And most of these pieces here are supposed to look like wood as well. And it's not going to look like wood when it's just got this flat color on it. But it will probably look like wood after it's washed. I probably should do something that isn't real challenging first. The least challenging thing to do is test this new color. But in terms of getting other things done, since the base coat on this is like the first of many steps, base coated and then washed. Okay. And then detailed with metallic and different colors. It would be, I just want to get this part done. Because if I can get it base coated and washed, and then the washed has to dry, I don't want to touch it while it's still wet. So the detailing, the plates and the other things will probably be done on Wednesday. If it dries enough, I might be able to get these parts painted. This is this color. I haven't used this in a while. Let's see how it stirs up. Got the vortex spinner thing going here. It's going to take a while. This particular color hasn't been used in a long time. So it needs to be well stirred. And then this new paint just arrived, and I can see that the pigment and the solvent are very well separated, so that's going to take a while. So I get to spend a while. I get to spend some time here. You can't hear it buzzing, but stirring paint. And then trying to open the jar. And of course, there's Porco, who, the minifig that can be painted at any time. I can start working on Porco Rosso as well. So there's stuff to do, and a lot of it actually involves painting. That's been a rarity. It actually has been a rarity doing relaxing painting on Dice and Dungeons. Another brush here. I use this big flat brush because there's a lot of surfaces that need to be painted. But then there's other things like in the corners and in the inside of the ring. I put all my brushes in a box here so they weren't flying all over the place. Thinking, well, that would be a good idea. At least that's what I was thinking, is that would be a good idea. I don't know if it is. I can't pick them up because, yeah. Guess I'll use this one. More expensive brush, so it has to be better. Well, see how this goes. I know the color will really look good once it's done because we've used this combination many times on dungeon tiles. Yeah, this, you know what? Well, it looks like it's okay. I was thinking I might want to get a fresh bottle of this paint, but I'm not going to. Goes. The white is turning brown. It's the point of it, isn't it? The thing to be most concerned about is missing spots or having like bubbles form or something. That's why I'm going to let this dry and then probably maybe even have to do a second coat or at least do touch up. One thing, I could have done, but I decided against was I could have painted these parts before they were assembled. Then I wouldn't have so many nooks and crannies and corners and things. But I decided against that because of the prep work in getting rid of the, filling in the gaps and all that kind of stuff. Not sure this is the best brush for this. I'm going to abandon this effort and see how this brush works. This brush is too stiff. I'm having just issues with brushes already this morning. And it's not working at all. What in the heck? I do all this prep work on it, and then it's going to get screwed up because the brushes aren't working? Really? Paint too thick? I'm wondering if what I'm getting here. Okay, it's pulling away. I think what I'm getting here is that this jar of paint is old. And look, it's pulling away from itself. Glad I decided to do the bottom first. I've never had trouble with this paint before, but I am now. And so there, great. Clean all these brushes, and then get a new jar of paint. I was saying I didn't want to do all that prep work and then have it all turn into a disaster because the paint's not working, because it's an old jar of paint. Great. So this is one way to start Monday. Not the way I was hoping, you know. You can't hear them because the microphone filters out the sounds, but they're being really loud, and hopefully I don't have to go up and rescue something or someone from barking dogs. Hi, Enforcer. Well, I thought it was going to go okay. I was going to do the base coat on the cart here, but the paint I'm using it hasn't been used in a while, and it's not covering well. I mean, you can see I just brushed it on, and it pulls itself off from itself, and it's not going on evenly. So fortunately, I have a fresh jar, and sure I can salvage this. But it's not how I wanted Monday to start. But I'm back. Our heat pump is pumping heat, which is good because it's quite cold out. But the disruption. Oh no! The whole game. Oh, the game where Phoebe was a character. Oh, that can happen. It's holding a group together for a long time is not that easy. Fortunately, Dice and Dungeons, we've been holding together now for over a year, and the show continues, and that's been going pretty well. But you put a lot of effort into Phoebe, so that's really quite sad. Okay, I'm going to have to go off camera and find the fresh jar of flat earth. I'll be back in like microseconds, right? Just a little here. This is the base color for our wooden dungeon tiles, and I bought lots and lots and lots of it, because we were painting a lot of dungeon tiles, and we were hoping to paint a lot of wooden ones, but that hasn't happened yet. It's a fresh jar, so it needs a lot of stirring. So you got it started and the group kind of undone. Well, you need to keep Phoebe and Phoebe's backstory because you might have a chance again. You just never know when you have an opportunity. So I was starting with what should have been just immediately and easily straightforward, which was to paint the base coat on this cart, which was, I have to say, really, I did a really nice job of prepping it. But then the paint isn't working. Oh, they all want to start over with new ones? Well, either way would be okay. I mean, but just because they're making new ones doesn't mean you have to. How did they react to Phoebe, the players who are staying? Did they like the character? If they liked Phoebe, then why not? Sometimes making of a new character, depending on if because the characters have to complement each other, especially if you've got like three players. We find out in our campaign that the DM had to introduce a kind of an NPC to balance the group. Oh, okay. So they were being ghosts. Well, it is important to have the characters interact really well. Okay. I need to make sure this is dry before I try to repaint it, and it's still, there's some places where it's not. And yeah, I can just see the paint built up in a few spots. It's on the bottom, but it kind of covers the wood grain. The paint is supposed to be really it's supposed to cover nicely and be thin at the same time. And it turned out to do neither. So, well, that's aside. Let's stir this again later. I guess what I'll do is attempt to paint the hubs of these wheels. Let's see if that goes badly. Dark aluminium. So this might be a Monday in the sense of the word of you have to hate Mondays. Oh, you got caught. Oh, okay. You were affected by the hurricane. Were you affected by that? Or where did you have the storm? Okay, I'm gonna have to put my head magnifiers on for this. This is a little finer detail work, and I have to be able to see what I'm doing. Oh my. Okay, I hope. Did you lose power for very long? Because I know what, like 4 million people, 3.5 million people lost power. It was pretty nasty. Just wondering how you came through it. This definitely is a Monday. And stuff all over the place. A day and a half is plenty long, but the others even longer. I guess there's going to be some people who are going to be, without power for over a week. I know the last hurricane, I think there's some people up in North Carolina who still might not have their power back. Yeah, that's just awful. So at least the flooding didn't get into your house. That's good. I know the news reports. The news reports we get is, oh, it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. Well, that might be true, but it's really not much comfort, is it? When it's like, oh, it could have been worse. After I put these on, I'm not sure if I'll be able to read the chat screen. We'll find out. The way Monday is going so far. Yeah, not just where you were, but through the whole state. This is dark enough to be able to see the difference. So was your flooding mainly from the rain, or did you get storm surge? Because I know the storm surge is usually pretty nasty. I can paint both sides. Yeah, I go silent here when I'm doing this kind of detail stuff. It's like I can't talk and get paint on things at the same time. What I'm trying to do with this is I want the hub to be a little bit darker than the rest of the wheel. Damage his house. Because the flooding can be, it's not just that it ruins things initially, but that and you end up with the potential of mold and sorts of things. But so it's drained away at least. That's good. You don't need as another one anytime this year. You weren't caught up anywhere near the. Okay, well, why not make the best of it, right? Draw some inspiration from your experience. You weren't caught up in any of the tornadoes, though, don't you? I hope not. Those, I know they were really nasty, really bad. No, no, I'm. Let's not provoke nature. What you went through is, I think, more than enough. Well, my hand is not holding steady today. You know, these 2x magnifiers, these wheels looked really good. They're the naked eye looking kind of thing, and now they look crappy. Okay. Yeah, well, the hubs are just dark enough. That's good. 17 tornadoes in his area. I was watching the news. Hi. Oh, thanks for joining chat. I am building. Be talking about Dyson Dungeons later because that's what we're all about. But I'm building Porco Rosso Savoia S.21. And at the moment, I'm doing painting some detail on the hubs of the wheels of the cart that holds it when it's on land, and also for display. And although this wasn't necessary, I thought, well, the hubs of the wheels, let's make them look a little bit different than the wheels themselves. So I have this slightly darker paint, ever so slightly darker, that I'm trying to get on just the spots. And after I get this wheel done, I'll show the rest of what's happening. But today is kind of catching up. We put a new heat pump in last Wednesday and Thursday, and the disruption, it's in the same room, and they had to work right over the workbench. And so everything came off, and then I had to come back on. And the disruption was greater than I had expected, and the reconstruction took longer, so I missed Friday. But I should be okay the rest of this. Just checking here. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Dulins. What's your suggestion? What's your idea? I'm open to any kind of idea because I'm an amateur at everything. Ah, okay, that makes sense. It's good to have a character that's complementary to the others. To really balance the group. least this paint is behaving, unlike the other one that I hope will be getting back to. You're a blogger. What are you blogging? I am an amateur model maker and Dungeons and Dragons player. Okay, well, there's some detail on the hubs that will be largely invisible. I'm going to have to check back on this later to see if the darker color worked. If not, I will use yet an even darker color paint. Ah, cool. Well, I'm going to invite Mary Dulins. Well, that's much appreciated. Let me talk a little bit about Dice and Dungeons then, since you're joining in your first time chat. Our show, we have a Dungeons and Dragons show that streams 3 Sundays a month at 2 and is also on YouTube and as a podcast. And we've been going for about over a year now. And this stream is a spin-off that happened because we produce our own dungeon tiles for our show, which are really beyond belief cool. And this stream started as a place where these were painted. I can't speak to that, but what I can do is talk to our dungeon mistress. I'm not even sure how I would do that, to be honest. I am incompetent. As far as this kind of thing goes, other than painting models. But do you have a place where our DM could maybe contact you if she were interested? So if you're looking at this wheel, Mary, okay. Yeah, I appreciate you contacting us, but like I said, I am not I'm not in charge of Dice and Dungeons. There is a Discord. The channel, it should show up on the social media shot. If you look below my scroll, usually those are there, but there is a Discord. It's Dice and Dungeons. And I know our DM and one other member who, actually the other members pay attention to Discord all the time. So if you're able to put something there, that would work out really, I think that would work out best. So Enforcer, it looks like your Dryad changes with the seasons and the moods. Okay. I like that idea. It sounds like a really cool character, and it probably would be, yeah, and definitely would complement the others. Okay, I'm looking at this and I'm saying that the darker hub color is way too subtle to be effective. It's there, but I don't want to make them, I don't know. I think it's okay. I don't want to make it too dark. I'm going to leave that. It's almost dry. Well, I'm waiting for that to dry, which I still am waiting. I'm going to test this new paint. You can't find a Discord. You know, I wish I were better at this. I really need to find out. I need to get better at the social media. But I know all our social media sites show up on my scroll under here. Yeah, why don't you do that? There it is. Oh, thank you. Dice in Dungeons, right. Great, thank you. Thanks, Enforcer. I appreciate that. That was really good. No, I'm going to test this paint while I'm waiting. Anyway, our Dungeons and Dragons show streams on Sundays. It's been going on for a long, long time. Our characters are well developed, and it's a lot of fun. And I appreciate any viewers that can join in. A new bottle of paint. I got this little vortex spinner thing that shakes it up. At least it's supposed to stir it up. And after I do this for a little while, I'm going to paint a swatch of this on a piece of paper. That's not a very sophisticated or difficult thing. And then what I want to do is I'm going to try some different washes on it because it's supposed to look like wood. And I'm pretty sure that this yellow color is not going to look like wood right off. But I want the wash to be kind of smooth and subtle. So I've got like 3 or 4 different options that I'm going to try. So I want a big chunk of test paint. And I had a piece of paper here all ready for testing. This is it. And so I'm going to put some paint on this using this large brush. So your character can just change appearances, right? Is it a magical change? Is it a change based on magic? It's going on pretty well. This is a weird color. Sure, I would use this for anything without a wash on it. It's going on pretty well. And this is a new bottle of paint, so Oh, okay. So did her moods change with the seasons then? Is that how it works? Oh, yeah, slothful summers, especially in warm climates, right? Okay, so that starts to make then I'm understanding better. So no, you shouldn't make winter sad. I suppose it is, where being in Florida, it would seem like winter would be sad, but when you live up north, you know, um, winter can be a lot of fun because you get to go out in the snow, do skiing and skating and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, okay. So does your dryad's appearance change based on moods that are not, I mean, just moods, right? So you get into combat and you become like either furious or afraid, that kind of thing. Fall, of course, is sad. I think changing with the season is good. Spring is confused. Yeah, depending on where you are, it can get quite confusing because, on one hand, life is coming back, right? And so it's a joyful, happy season. On the other hand, spring is also the deadliest season. I don't know if you knew that, but for animals and for humans as well, because for animals and even humans, especially before, back in the day, before food preservation, all your stuff was running out. You had this bountiful harvest in the fall, and a nice holiday celebration and all of that. And then your food is starting to run out in the spring. It's a really difficult time because nothing else is growing yet. So spring could be fearful, anxious and fearful. I think that would be okay. Winter, I think winter should be, that's an interesting question about the emotion associated with winter. Pensive is like slightly anxious. Actually, I think pensive would be a lot better for spring. Yeah, winter could be remorse. It could be. I like that. That's a good idea. It's a time of reflection, a time of quiet reflection. Um, and maybe thinking back at the things that you could have done that you didn't. That's kind of decent. That's pretty good. But I think spring might be more pensive. Autumn autumn might be like joyful. Autumn could be happy because the colors are changing. Just had a bountiful harvest. A big holiday is coming up. Those are just my thoughts because of, I don't know, the seasons are different here than they are in Florida. They just feel different. Okay, this is a fresh bottle of paint that I am now hoping will work better than the old paint because the old paint was a disaster. And this is working better than the old paint. Yeah, it's going on smoothly. It's covering nicely. Hopefully it will. Yeah, this was the right choice. I'm glad I stopped when I did. It could have really been a mess. So here's a lesson for everybody. Is if you've got old paint, if you have a use for it, do it. But for the most part, you could very well be disappointed in its ability to cover things. What happened was that it gummed up. It solvent to pigment. The solvent just got bad. And so it wasn't covering. It wasn't covering well, and it was pulling itself off of the surface. It's require 2 coats. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's why I have to definitely have to paint the silver part later separately. Actually having to pay attention to what I'm doing here. Actually, it's the opposite. Fauna is plants and flora. No, fauna is animals, and flora is plants. You might want to check that out. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. I'm going to cover the whole thing, including the thing that's going to get painted a different color later, just to make sure that it all comes out in a uniform way, and that there aren't any spots that end up like being missed. And I'm pretty sure that fauna. Ah. Oh, okay. I get it. Actually, that's pretty clever then. They swapped. Oh, they're Fae. Okay. Nicole plays a changeling druid who has been taught in the ways of Fae magic and is having a wonderful time playing a Fae character. Being a trickster and sometimes bordering on evil. I have to say that. Sometimes just it's unpredictable. And I'm finding that playing with a Fae character is really a lot of fun. Just painting here and sort of paying attention to what I'm doing, sort of at least. There's a lot of surface area on this, a lot of opportunity to miss spots. Okay. Now I understand why flora and fauna are the opposite of what you would expect them to be. that's definitely a thing a Fae would do. That's pretty fun. I like that. Okay. So what were the other players again? Were they mages? I know you said they were in a guild together. You know, um, yeah, that is the point of being Fae. I think I think what you have done is you've managed to capture what it is to be Fae by not being able to wrap your head around what it's like to play Fae, because that's what Fae is about. I think that will give you an advantage in capturing the nature of the character. I think it's kind of cool that you're looking at it that way and that you're experiencing it that way. Um, I found that, you know, if you become your character as you're playing, that it, especially doing the show, right? Because one is acting as the character. Um, that the character just becomes more alive, becomes fleshed out more. But you seem to have, yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe it's easier in the sense that, you know, it's not real, right? So you can feel more freedom. But I think playing a fake character is really, I think that'll be a lot of fun. You know, and it makes it fun for the other party members too. You become slightly unpredictable. You know, not chaotic necessarily, right? You don't want to be the chaotic member of the party, maybe. Um, but you never not entirely sure how something's going to go with a fake character. You know, like our fake character is, on one hand, making sure that we never kill anybody. On the other hand, does some pretty serious killing. Um, has some powerful magic. So I think that you can have a lot of fun with your character, and you pretty much basic. You know what you're doing. You're just staying true to type, and your type is unpredictable. Yeah, this was the right choice to decide to paint the metal parts later, because there's no way I was going to be able to keep them from getting painted over. Let this dry, and then I'm going to go back over it and see if if I've missed any spots or if it needs to be second coated anywhere. Looks like it came out pretty decent, considering how it started. Then I have to remind myself this is going to be washed. And so like inconsistencies in color and things like that will not be that obvious. Great. Barking dogs. Yeah, I think the hubs are just a little darker. I think that turned out okay. So I'm okay with how the wheels turned out. Yeah, this is pretty streaky. I might put a second coat on it, or maybe I'll just count on the wash making it work. I think Fauna, given the other players, and I'm not sure what your world is going to be like, but having the Dryad, um, not really a magic user, but the Dryad, I think that's going to be a lot of fun to play. So it's more of a modern kind of, the Dryad will fit into that, I think, really well. Um, so is Fauna going to be, how is she going to react to the cities and all the mechanical stuff? Is she going to be like fascinated by it and trying to learn more about it, or is she just going to go, this is just so evil and awful because it's not like I am, in tune with nature. Hmm. Okay. Well, maybe you'll find out when the time actually comes. The In D&D, my character is a fighter, a fur-bog fighter, and this it is the first melee character I ever played. I had always been some sort of magic user, oftentimes a cleric. Okay, I played cleric fairly often, and a bard once. So being melee is is a really different experience. Like always being up in front, taking damage. Okay, yeah, I'm already seeing these little spots that I missed. So I'm going to have to do some. I'm going to let it dry first. I don't want to. What I've discovered is sometimes you can pull the paint off. But you can see that this is drying really flat. It doesn't look very lively. And I think with the wash, it will really bring out the wood like aspect of this. Surface right on the front of it. Sometimes it levels out and sometimes it doesn't. I think that'll fix it. Oh, it makes a lot of sense because, as I said, my character, well said, Ralph, was a furbog fighter, and I'd never played melee before and had no idea what to do. So I just initially it's just like, well, I've got melee weapons. I guess I need to get close. So what do? You just pull out your melee weapons and charge in and hope you get the right target and you don't die before the combat's over. But that'll be an interesting experience. I wouldn't be hesitant about it because, well, you're melee, right? Just go be melee. Melee. Got Monday-itis or just everyday-itis, knocking things over. This is the color that this is going to get painted, which is a better color than that. And I want to test different washes on it to see which one makes it look more wood-like. And what I probably should do is actually label them. And I found that it really is a good idea to test this ahead of time, because they was doing this once before with something. I tested them and I thought that the umber would look better than the brown, and the brown ended up looking way better than the umber. So no, I think it's a really cool thing that you're trying a really totally different kind of character. Because it'll expand your gameplay. Oh, yeah, that would be good if one of the mages actually did healing. I would say that would be a really excellent idea. Otherwise, the next time you're in town, make sure that you get yourself a whole lot of healing potions. You don't want to be caught out without that, because you are going to take damage. Need much of that. But if you have a mage with healing spells, then you can keep doing what you're doing and not have to worry about it. Which one is this? This is the umber. I'm going to try to make it look wood grainy. Umber with, and this is sort of dry brushing it on. Looks like maybe if with dry brushing I could hit like the high points or something. Oh, yeah. So how are you going to handle that? Because can you do things like, if you take a branch of your tree or some leaves or something, as long as you've got a part of the tree, would that violate Would that violate the lore to be able to do it that way? Maybe, maybe like a little seedling or a seedling, a tiny little seedling in a terrarium like container. Would that work? Hmm. But yeah, the question is, do you have to have the whole tree or just a part of the tree as long as it's alive? I mean, yeah, you have to be able to carry it with you. But maybe will the terrarium idea work? You know, where you've got an enclosed container. Brown, the brown actually works pretty well. You know, I mean, not sure, but I think you can like stretch the rules a little bit sometimes. But maybe if your tree was either shrunk down or you were able to carry a piece of it, you know, especially if you could but carry it with you. Just a thought. You know, and if you were carrying it with you, then that would be, you know, it's just one of those things where you're worried that you could take care of it as a in your role playing, do things like nurture it and talk to it and be, you know, become part of it again. But there are like enclosed containers that might work, that you might be able to kind of use as an idea to carry your tree with you. This is a fresh bottle of smoky ink. I'm using this rather than the old one because the old one, when they have the same problem as I did with the paint, it the set of the pigment settling out. And what better way to find out if it's working than to test it on this stuff? This tends to be a little darker. It's got a lot of red in it, so it's a really cool color. But I think it's going to be too dark for the airplane. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm looking at this and I think the brown will be better because it's basically the wood is supposed to be this color, but then there's just highlights like these streaks on it. Yeah, that that would be kind of cool. But yeah, I think that you're definitely going to have to go kind of along that line, right? Of always carrying your tree. This aside, I'm going to go back to this now, and I definitely need to do some touching up on the base coat. There's some spots that are missed. There's some streakiness here that might be an issue. But I definitely need to touch up the white spots where I missed. There are just whole places I missed. And that happens. I guess the streakiness isn't that big a problem because it is supposed to be wood. But the missed spots are a problem. I think carrying your tree with you is the way that you have to go. You don't have much choice about that. Having a tree with you and being highly vulnerable. You could even have, if your DM was really kind of mean, you could have like somebody steal your tree, and then the quest would be for your party to retrieve it before your demise. That would be a mean thing to do, wouldn't it? But that creates a point of vulnerability that would make for interesting gameplay. So I like your friend's ideas of making your tree portable. I think that's definitely fun. That's definitely cool. And then whether or not that becomes a significant vulnerability or not, I guess that's going to be up to the DM. Sorts of different ways. I'm sure I'm missing the one rotation that would show me this big spot that I missed somewhere. There has to be one. It's a good idea. This big thing is working out, though. At least that. My holder. Paint the entire bracket here. I decided just for uniformity of color later. Why isn't it covering now? It is pretty neat to be able to do that with your character. I have to say that is pretty nice. Is you can build a character, not just you know having an overpowered character that just blows things away or whatever doesn't make for very much game play, but to have a a specific weakness or vulnerability, like if you're carrying a potted plant around, there's a vulnerability to have that can just add a lot of interest to gameplay. So that's a pretty good system. Crows. That is weird. Well, crows, being in the sticks is one thing. Usually crows are pretty decent in like marginal areas where there's a few trees. What might have happened is that the environment, their natural habitat, their general habitat might have been a problem if there were a lot of trees down somewhere, because they like to sit on the margins. So they like to be in trees, but near open areas. The other thing that's a little bit weird, but is true, is that crows are a little vulturous. They might be eating little dead creatures. Okay, anything from like frogs to rodents to like possums and things. So it might be that. I'd recommend that you don't watch the movie The Birds. I think that's a Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's sinister when there's a lot of crows around. Crows are actually, though, really cool animals. They're very bright. If you can make friends with them, there are stories about people who have been able to make friends with crows and they exchange gifts. Like you leave out little shiny things and they'll pick them up and they'll bring back something that they picked up from somewhere else. I think that's pretty fun. They are. You can become buddies with crows. I'm going to do some. Well, I'm waiting for this to dry so I can wash it with the smoky ink with this stuff. But yeah, you can become friends. You can become friends with crows. I've heard that that's been possible, and that you can do gift exchanges, which I think is really amazingly cool. That you can be able to do that. I'm looking for this. I'm going to take the sprue marks off of the hull here. It's where it was attached to the sprues or the trees, and I want to do that pretty carefully. I'm going to use 800 grit and just go at it very slowly. Some scissors. And I'm going to write 800 on all these pieces so that I know what grit level it is. because what I found, it's got 800 printed on here, is that when I cut pieces of this off and it's not that, I can't tell what grit it is. It's the difference between 800 and 600. You can't tell just by feeling it. You might, if you've got time and interest, you might spend some time observing the crows, just to see what they're up to. Maybe they're just passing through. Maybe their habitat was hurt and they're looking for a new place. You could put out little shiny things, see if they take them. Like bottle caps, or even things like paper clips. Because they do like to collect kind of shiny things sometimes. So are you nearsighted or farsighted? I am nearsighted. Seriously nearsighted ever since I was a kid. Rubbing my finger along to make sure I'm getting it. Oh, yeah. I used to joke that it wasn't a joke. You get the eye chart, and the biggest letter is this gigantic E. And my eyesight's actually gotten a little better lately because as one gets older, you get more farsighted, which is making me slightly less nearsighted. Kind of weird that way. But yeah, the can you read any letters on this chart? Yes, E. And I couldn't even really read the E. Yeah, very nearsighted then. That's why I don't wear my glasses when I'm doing this, because I can see pretty well about from like right up close to oh no, maybe 15, 18 inches away. But the only reason I could see the E on the eye chart was because I knew it was an E. It was kind of a pointy blob. So I can really understand that. You go out and you just see fuzziness everywhere. That wouldn't be very much fun at all. So I can tell an anecdote about this. So I was growing up and I got to be nearsighted. Oh, probably, I really started noticing it when I was maybe in fourth or fifth grade. It got kind of progressively worse. So one day, one of the kids in my class wore glasses. Not everybody did. A couple of them did. We were, screwing around like you always do. So what do? Somebody has to wear glasses, so you steal their glasses, right? And play keep away with their glasses because we're, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old and you do those kind of stupid, mean things. So I put them on. And, oh, Yeah. Is the condition stabilized for you? So I put these glasses on, and all of a sudden I could see all this stuff at a distance. It was amazing, and I didn't want to give them up. You know, it was like, "Hey, we're playing a game of keep away here. You can't keep the glasses." And it was, "No, I want to keep them." It was a weird sensation. So I tried to tell my dad. I'm glad it's stable for you. Yeah, I told my dad that I think I need glasses, and my father had he was a pilot cadet in World War II and had 20/20 vision, and his kids, no way his kids would ever need glasses, right? Uh, Finally, it was yeah, it was like driver's ed time, and I couldn't pass the eye test, so ended up getting glasses, and I still got astigmatism and other junk, so distance driving. No, they're not going to eat a live animal like that. Crows crows will eat carrion. They're happy to do that, but they're not predators like hawks. They're not going to attack. It's not going to happen. See, dachshunds. Not being able to drive isn't all that awful. It's weird. My daughter-in-law, you're going to find this is you're going to think this is kind of weird. So my daughter-in-law grew up in Los Angeles, right? And she never got her driver's license. Dachshund, yes. Those are pretty cool dogs. Are they the short haired kind, or do you have the kind of shaggy, longer, not shaggy, but the longer haired kind? Yeah, anyway, yeah. So she grew up in LA, never got a driver's license, still doesn't have it. Never ever learned how to drive, and it never got in the way. Um, even in a place like Los Angeles, which is really kind of shocking in a way. Ah, the long-haired kind. Oh, all right. So when they run, they have these like waves of hair down their sides. That yeah, shiny hair. Those are really fun. I've seen them in dog shows. We watch the Westminster Dog Show almost every year on TV. It is really cool to see the long-haired dachshunds. We have poodles, standard poodles, basic, pretty much because they're hypoallergenic and they don't shed. People think of poodles as being these frou-frou kind of little dogs, but these are standard poodles, big ones too. The larger one, Rosalie, is 70 pounds, so she's a big dog, and then the other one is like 55, which is still big for a standard poodle. They're usually around 45 or 50. And I can tell you, they are very athletic animals. They just run really fast. They actually jump pretty well too. Yeah, that's right. And they're not. They're groomed. We let them have poofy ears and a little poof on their head so that they look poodly kind of. Um, oh yeah, groom that way. Grooming poodles, it's $100 to $150 each to have them groomed. We found that out early on, and if you've got the real poofy stuff on it, that it basically has to be combed out every day or two, maybe every twice a day even. So my daughter-in-law, not the one who didn't get the driver's license, the other one, um, got a grooming table, the table with a stand and a little leash and everything on it and a set of clippers. It's kind of expensive, but it paid for itself within two groomings, well, three groomings. But otherwise they have to be trimmed about every month. Otherwise they get way too shaggy. But they're in the winter we let it grow a little bit longer because it gets cold up here in Michigan. But in the summer it's kept pretty short. They're almost greyhoundish. They're really athletic, big deep chests, long legs compared to their body. They just, when they chase each other outside, it's really amazing how they were bred as hunting dogs, water hunting dogs. Fauna. You were trying to decide definitely how she carries her tree with her. And I think maybe you were settling on potted plant, which would be kind of a cool thing to do, to always carry a potted plant, maybe in a backpack. I don't know. You're also talking about the different seasons, and how her appearance changes with mood and which mood should go with which seasons. And what we were discovering was that being here up north, the mood associated with a different season is different than the ones down there in Florida. Because winter up here is snow and ice and a whole different kind of outdoor activity. Little crystals of ice floating in the air and refracting the light and that kind of thing. It's really pretty neat. Spring is the difficult season. I would say spring should definitely be anxious and pensive. But winter could be like quiet and reflective. Fall is a fun season up north. It's just constantly changing weather. One day it's going to be 80, the next day it's going to be 30. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's really dry. Kind of a fun and exciting season. Okay, I'm going to now do this, and this better work. Otherwise, I'm going to have to reprime it and start over. This is Smoky Ink Wash. It's the color I use on. You don't ever get cold there. I mean, cool. You get cool weather. Now watch what happens. See how dramatically it changes the color? But at the same time, it still keeps its brown tone. The thing with this now is making sure that I get all the surfaces. There's a lot of nooks and crannies and surfaces. Oh yeah, and your summers there in Florida, it's not just the heat, it's the humidity. Right? I mean, up here, we can get days that are even above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, that can happen. Not that often, but you've got really hot weather pretty frequently with a lot of humidity. Oh yeah, your summers are pretty challenging. haven't been to Florida a lot. You wouldn't, of course, you wouldn't be surprised to know that Disney, right? You have to do Disney and Universal. It's kind of nice getting to Florida, say in February, which is one of the least pleasant months up here. Well, I shouldn't say that. The end of February, beginning of March are kind of unpleasant months because winter's been going on just a little bit too long. The snow is starting to melt, and so it's kind of rotten. Yeah, 90 with humidity, just that's difficult. It's challenging. We don't even hit we don't hit 90 all that often even. I mean, certainly often enough. But not people don't like it that much here when it's that. It's one of those things where I'm paying attention to what I'm doing here, I guess. Well, the wash is working at least. It's looking pretty good. Try to catch all of the parts. So your dryad changes with the seasons because of the mood of the seasons. Definitely need to decide what the moods are going to be. In your backstory for your dryad, okay. Well, yeah, spring is a difficult time. Up here, up north, it was really difficult because one day, and it's just sort of like in the fall, but almost in the opposite direction. Some days, like 80 degrees and sunny, and everything wants to bloom and blossom, and then you get a day that's below freezing again. I think reflective winter would be good. But I think that, just like your plants can't decide whether to blossom or not, I think spring really needs to be pensive or even apprehensive. Thanks for joining in, though. And if you can come back Wednesday, I'd like to hear how Fauna is developing as a character. Sounds pretty cool. And it sounds like she will be a lot of fun to play. Have a good day. I'm putting this wash on the wood to make it look a little bit livelier than just, the flat paint. And the challenging bit about it is getting it everywhere. surfaces, so many spots to just miss completely. If I were really paying attention to what I was doing, I would probably do something like, I don't know, start in a place and systematically go around, as opposed to just kind of like I'm doing now, just randomly going around the piece. So far, hasn't been a disaster. You know, and sometimes, not being a disaster is a success. If you're watching, I hope that you're noticing the difference that the wash makes in the appearance of, the cart. And I hope that you're agreeing that it's a good difference. Getting sticky, the brushes getting sticky. Yeah. So I want quiet here as I am, yeah, trying to not miss spots. Some big spots, like the whole back of this. Keep it going in the direction of the wood grain here. Horizontal down here, vertical here. Yeah, I'll even it out after I get it on, right? It's streaky, weird. I'm washing this today, and then on Wednesday I'm going to paint the little bits of metallic detail. There's a bracket which is still primer white on in the center of the X that holds it all together. And there's little bitty brackets here where the wheels attach. Okay, do the X here. I became silent. I have nothing to talk about. What can I talk about? I talked to our DM about putting the music back, and I was like, nah, we're not going to bother because we keep getting every once in a while, there's we use music by Alexander Nakarada on our D&D show, and it's really good music, and we have the rights to use it and all of that. But apparently on YouTube, there's people who make a living at filing copyright complaints or something. Totally familiar with how it works, but basically it's just a scam trying to shake people down, or for use of music that they have the rights to use, right? So we used to have music on this stream too, but that ended, and I was told it's just not worth the trouble. Just keep up an entertaining monologue. Nobody will notice that when this music is missing, and so that means that I have to. There's just a lot of pressure there, a huge amount of pressure to keep up an entertaining monologue about something, anything. Mr. Ed, Petticoat Junction, something. Here I am talking about something. And failing. I'm failing to have an entertaining monologue. I think as much as I can see, given limitations in eyesight, this is coming out pretty good. It'll look okay. I need to now I need to go over it and find the spots that I missed. At the same time, failing to maintain an entertaining monologue. Okay, you see any spots that I missed? I don't. Looks the wood's pretty good. Some of the green is showing. There's a little knot. So I want this wash to be thoroughly dry, and once it's thoroughly dry, then I will paint the little bracket in the middle, the little handles on the sides. Those are rings to which you attach a chain or a rope or something to pull the cart, and then the brackets for the wheels, and then I can, once that's dried, I can move on to, that isn't coming out there. Once that's successfully dried, then I can attach the wheels and the cart will be done. Well, I have to paint those bits. Those are a different color because that's like a fabric. Covered that well there. Not too bad. Not too bad. What's going on here? Maybe it's just the reflection. I'm not sure. It's like a spot that is way lighter than everything else. I think I've got it now. Okay. This is getting to the point where, as I have found over and over and over again, messing with it further just messes it up and just needs to be left alone. I think I have reached that point where anything further will be a problem rather than a benefit. So, declare this a success, put it on its clip here, stick the clip in its hole, and set it aside to dry. And then these are the wheels. And here's the test patches for the paint. And I think this is the one. This is too streaky. This is too red and too dark. This is more subtle, and I can use this hopefully to just shade. If I were an artist, maybe I'll ask Nicole to do some shading on it so that this will end up looking like wood with some spots where there may be a little bit darker, some wear on it or some oil spills or something. But that's why I tested that. What am I going to do for the rest of this? One thing I am going to do is I'm going to test, and hopefully this will be okay, is these circles which are really distracting from the inside of these show. And if this is supposed to be like wood planks and stuff, these circles are not a very attractive element. And I've got the other fillers that I have, just they'll either go in there and not be sanded down, or they will melt the plastic, or they will show a different texture and maybe not even hold. So the suggestion has been to use some epoxy. Yep, pants. Clean that off later. Is fill them in with epoxy and then sand them down, because the epoxy should adhere and not come out when it's being sanded, but also be hard enough to sand. And I'm going to use 30-minute epoxy, which means that it's going to sit there a good long time before it hardens, because the 30-minute epoxy gets a little bit harder than the 5-minute. It gives me a little more time to work it. Okay. And I've got plenty of time to let it sit here until Wednesday, when I will sand it down. And if these test spots work, then I'll get the other 5. Piece of scrap paper. With something on, just a surface onto which to mix the epoxy. Here, I'll put this out here where one can see it. You can watch paint dry, or in this case, watch the wash dry. There's the hardener, there's the rosin. One thing about this is that for the other reason is the 5-minute epoxy. The hardener really smells bad. This doesn't smell quite as bad. Try to get it so that they're the same size. Thoroughly mix them. You want to completely fill the divot, the circle, and I want this to come up to and just slightly over the edges of the circle. So it gives something against which to sand. But I don't want to get it all over. I don't want to stick it in there like that. I almost stuck it. I almost put the end of it in there. Going over the edge of the circle just a little bit in case I need to feather it. Okay, you know what I mean by that? It's that. But I want to be higher than the circle because I can sand it down. But if it doesn't completely fill it, then I need to do this again. So this will harden. And I'm going to sand this entire surface with a polishing grit sandpaper. And hopefully these little spots then just will simply not show anymore. Okay, well, you can see by the glisteningness that they're filling the little circle, and that's going to sit there now until Wednesday. I mixed like way too much epoxy, but that's okay. So it's going to sit until Wednesday. They should be very hard by then, as hard as they're going to be, and then I will test the sanding of it and see how that goes. What have I got? I've got a half hour yet, so let me try to accomplish something yet. This is drying, and I've got the very that's not good. Okay. I mean, it's one thing to have a discontinuity. It's another to make it look like a brush mark, right? Nah, it's looking like a brush mark. But I saw that. I want my unevenness to be there, but I don't want it to look like it was just badly painted. And that one looked like it was badly painted, but now it looks close to being okay. Better. It'll do. Always something. Always something, a spot that doesn't look right or reflects weirdly or something. Okay. But what are the important things to do here? The important things are to put this aside so I don't get epoxy over everything. To set these brushes up here. Here, I can work on these. These are radiators, I do believe. And it's important to keep the parts together. So I'm going to sand off the sprue marks and then cement them together, two halves, in these two halves. That might take up pretty much the rest of the stream. This is a 600 grit here, I believe. It's the one I want. See if this is still working. I don't know if you can see them, but these little edges of plastic, those are remnants of the sprue. Sawed them off. And they need to not be there. So I'm going to get them so that they're pretty much gone. I don't have to get them perfect because once the two halves are cemented together, I'm going to be sanding the whole edges, including any remnant of this that's sticking out, because I don't want the seams to show. Hi, Enforcer. Oh, yep. I will be vacuuming. Oh, okay. Folding laundry is kind of boring. Vacuuming can actually be pretty exhausting. Here, hydrate. Thanks for redeeming. So while you were gone, I put some little drops of epoxy in these mold mark circles. And on Wednesday, after it's set, hopefully be very, very hard, I'm going to sand them down and see if it works as a filler. Now I am doing more removing little sprue bits from pieces so I can cement them together. I'll be finishing out one. My new schedule now is really working out pretty well. It's going from 10 until 1 with either no break, or if there is a break, it would be very, very fast. Believe it or not, going just the solid 3 hours instead of 2 in a break and coming back, it's just easier for me to do it. I'm not entirely sure why, but it is. I'm going to get a file just to get these down closer to the edge, because this is taking time to sand. So instead of going from 10 until 2 with a huge break in between that's really disruptive and I find it hard to get back to it afterwards, I'm going to go continue doing you want my honest opinion? Yes. On the other hand, no, I don't. It's so silly. I hardly even want to say it. If that prince was a frog, there, I said it. Fauna, triad, frog. But I would say now it could be somebody who wanted to be a prince or was princely. Of course, you want your character to be in love with somebody that would tick off their boss. I mean, the equivalent of their boss. Frog is pretty cliche too, isn't it? I don't even know why I said that out loud. It was kind of embarrassing to say it out loud. Um, Speculation about a love interest that would be totally incompatible with being fey, and that that whole thing comes off here. Okay, this whole nubbin, because the the protrusion, the tab that goes into the slot is already on the other half. I don't know, some definitely definitely not elvish. I would say um, half human, half orc. That's kind of cliche too. I think goblin would definitely tick off. I mean, it would be in character to be in love with a satyr, especially if your satyr has a really interesting, tragic backstory. We're always asking our characters on D&D, our NPCs, about their tragic backstories. Sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't, depending on if the DM feels like making one up or not. Well, this is something that would really tick off. The Archfey is a woodsman, right? Falling in love, falling in love with someone who makes a living cutting down trees. That sounds pretty nasty, doesn't it? I mean, you could try that. A human woodsman, or maybe something that would be less incompatible, like a human ranger, could work too. Well, that wouldn't be good. If you ticked him off so much that she ended up just being trapped to a tree, then she couldn't play in the game anymore. So you want it to be annoying but not fatal, right? I'm going to have to ask our DM for some advice about what to talk about on the stream. I'm just running out of ideas. I'm going to have to go back to remembering. Just a thought, and then the woodsman, maybe, the woodsman had this career and didn't really understand the effect he or she was having on the trees and what that meant. So you could have just this whole interesting awakening kind of the woodsman to a different way of life, and it could take a long time. It could start out to be really difficult and challenging, and then gradually become kind of an enlightenment. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a thought that came to mind. Looking this dryad thing. If I might, if I ever have a different character in a different game, I might steal that because I know Zoria is having a really fun time being a changeling druid with fey magic. Uh, kind of outlawish almost. It's a good idea to check with the DM. I mean, you don't want the DM necessarily to steer your character. In some ways, the DM has to take on the responsibility of adapting to the character that you create. On the other hand, you want to. The DM has a story to tell of some sort, and you don't want to make it impossible for them to do that. You can't have it be incompatible or not play along well with the other players. Going to actually get some of these super magic expensive clamps. Really liking Fauna. You're going to have to describe how she dresses a little bit later. Okay, let me see if these parts even fit before I put cement on. That's always a good idea, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and definitely all the edges will need to be definitely will need some sanding down because the seams are going to show. Thanks for dropping in. I'm going to be ending probably soon, but I want to hear more about Fauna. So I hope you get back on Wednesday and tell us more. Maybe it'd be tempting to just all go with the green and brown, but it might be kind of fun to have a different color too. Some blues, maybe aquamarine. I like aqua. Get this around the edges. I mean, you say, "Oh yeah, that's excess," but I actually want the cement to ooze out a little bit because it fills the gap. Danger is getting it all over my fingers, which is almost certain to happen here. Parts don't align. You get it all together, and then they don't line up. So that is just instead of just having not only a seam, there are ridges. Standing down part takes care of a lot of that, but the less there is to start with, the easier it is to finish it. But you can see the seam, where the parts come together, and that just never looks good. So be held together. I have numbers on here because I'm being visited by our kitty. That's unusual. You can't hear it because microphone filters out extraneous sounds other than my voice. It would be better if you could hear these other sounds, because then it would just be, how did that get plugged up? Good grief. Tip of this plugged. Thin wire. Yeah. Here you can watch me fail to get this little thin wire in a little hole in the tip. Of sighing sounds. I haven't had to do that yet today, though. Pieces are okay. I just, wow, that way overdid it. I unplugged it, but it's just like going everywhere. I actually have way too much now. Sometimes, these tiny little precision applicators are not as precisioned as one would like. Yeah, can definitely tell it's getting close to the end time of the stream. Not the end of time, but the end of the time for the stream, because yeah, stuff's starting to not work. Well, on Wednesday, you'll get to watch me sand down all these edges, all around the edges. It'll be kind of boring and slow because there's a lot of edges. And I want to keep these with their numbers because one goes on one side of the plane and one on the other. And I don't want to get them on the wrong sides because then it won't fit. There. Let me then wrap up by talking about Dice and Dungeons and doing a summary and a preview. So the summary today is I actually got a few things done. You wouldn't know it, but I managed to get this painted, base coated, and washed, and it came out pretty well. On Wednesday, I'll be painting the brackets on the top and the bottom, and these little rings here. And then the top of this gets painted a different color because that's like a big fabric kind of thing that cushions the hull of the plane, so that it doesn't get all scratched up by the wood. So that I'll have to find that paint. It's deck tan. Maybe I can even find it now. You never know. This color. There, I've got it out and ready to go. Deck tan is ready to go. I am done with flat earth. And this flat earth this bottle of Flat Earth is hardly usable anymore, so I'm not sure if I'm even going to keep it. These parts you're glued to. Okay. Well, what's going on here? Okay. It looked like it was very badly misaligned. And it is kind of misaligned, but not as badly as I thought. There's just some little bits of sprue left over. While there's still a little bit of give in the cement, realigning the parts so that I just have a mid-ocean ridge to sand down and not a misalignment to correct. Glad I took a look at that. It's much improved. Yeah, so I'll be painting the metallic details on this, and then these little side things where the wheels are attached and the cushioning here and here. That'll be some detail painting that needs to be done, and once that has dried, I'll attach the wheels and the cart will be finished. I've got a bunch of parts here that need to be cleaned up. Just removing the sprue marks, making sure that they fit. Little parts. I've got the sitting down Porco Rosso whose head is not attached, and I need to attach that and clean up the body. So I'll be doing that on Wednesday. I have test applied epoxy to these circles here, and on Wednesday I'll be sanding those down. And if it works, then I'll be mixing some epoxy and filling in the other 5 divots so that those can be sanded down, and then this whole hull can be sanded down. And once the hull is sanded down, then I can paint it. And I tested the paint. This is the color of the paint, this kind of brownish color. And then there's a wash. I'm going to be using a wash on it because this wash makes it look a lot more like finished wood. This brown worked. The umber didn't work at all. Smoky worked fine on this for the cart, but it's not going to work on the hull, so I'm going to use this brown color. Yeah, that's looking okay. Yeah, so be working on those, working on the cart, working on this, cleaning up those, maybe getting that ready to go. And depending on how the time goes and how all these other pieces come together, probably like on these parts, yeah, they need to be primed. So I need to clean them up on Wednesday. So if I get other things done and nothing bad happens, I could maybe start working on the Porco Rosso figure. But you can see that I took the better part of 2.5 hours here and accomplished, as usual, hardly anything, except this is brown now, and it was whitish when I started. And I imperceptibly painted the hubs of these wheels slightly darker than the wheels themselves, so that there's a little bit of a contrast there. And I have some even darker paint that I could use, but I don't want to make it look cartoonish any more than it's going to. This painting stream started because Dyson Dungeons does the Dungeons and Dragons show, and we produce our own dungeon tiles on the 3D printers back here, like this. And they got painted on this show, on this stream. base coated. These will need some wash, some detail put on. But the really cool thing about these, and here's some wooden ones, so you can see that the try to make the wagon look kind of like these. The real cool thing about these is that underneath, these have ball magnets in the corners, and so, and you've seen this many times before if you've been watching this stream, they all hold together and come apart and go back together, and they are really cool. So that's how the stream started. And once there weren't any more of these to paint because we had as many as we needed, I started building models. I built a submarine and almost finished with an Apollo stack. And now I'm doing Porco Rosso's plane and trying to make it look good, trying to turn it into a quality model. And so far, the cart looks okay. I think it came out looking okay. And I've got 10 minutes left. So I'm going to spend that 10 minutes inviting everybody to watch the Dungeons and Dragons show, which shows on Sundays, 3 days a week at 2 with a live chat on Twitch. And also can be all the previous episodes show up on YouTube and as a podcast. It's anybody who likes Dungeons and Dragons and wants to watch a really fun D&D show. Watch Dice and Dungeons. And if you go on Twitch, you can become a follower. And if you go on YouTube, you can become a subscriber. And you can also go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron. And if you become a patron, you get access to our DM's notes, session notes, our improv warm-up sessions, and a recently introduced feature called Hot Takes from Cold Reads, during which one of us, usually Zoria, who has now become our prompt engineer, she's not only on time being prompt. Hi. I will hydrate. But sends a prompt off to one of the AI large language model things and asks it to produce something that has to do with Dungeons and Dragons, and more specifically Dice and Dungeons. And then we read it. It's a cold read. And then we critique it, which turns out to be a pretty easy thing to do, because let's just say that AI generated stuff sometimes leaves a lot to be desired in terms of quality. I just dropped a piece of sandpaper that I need. Thanks for joining in. You're joining in just about the end, because my stream now is going from 10 until 1 without a break. Or if there's a break, it's going to be a very short break. Because after some experimentation, in terms of how well I stand up to it, I found that when I take a break, like around noonish or so, and come back at about 12:30ish or so, that I'm just really not good after that. So kind of by accident one day, thank you, say hi and become a follower and join back on Wednesday. I start from about 10 and go until about 1. And I'm continuing to work on the Savoia here very slowly. I'll just say I'm methodical, but basically I'm just really slow. And sometimes we chat about D&D in chat. Sometimes people join in and talk about their own games and their own characters, and it's fun talking about their character development. Sometimes there's nobody else in chat, so I talk about 1950s and 60s television, or 1950s and 60s phenomenon, like car maintenance. Oh, thank you. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm not in tune to what's going on. I'm old. I'm out of touch. What can I say? I'll be going back to the Apollo fairly soon. We actually got the sticky paper that I wanted to print the control panels that I've been talking about. We can print the control panels on the sticky paper and apply them to the plastic parts of the control panels. And then I tested one on regular paper, and it actually looks pretty decent. So I'm probably going to, maybe next week, print out the real thing and stick it on and finish the Apollo. And then I'll be able to show that off because it'll be a finished model. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you appreciate it. It's kind of fun doing this. We get to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Occasionally I get to talk about how I started playing it when it first came out. Back in Madison, Wisconsin, was actually on a telecast, a Dungeons and Dragons telecast, believe it or not, in like 1975 on cable access. Cable had come out and they were required to have a public access channel, and about a bunch of us got together and did a D&D show in 75 once a week. I don't think anybody ever watched it because nobody watches cable. Well, maybe, it was like on a Saturday night or something. And, if people didn't have a date, or if they had a date who was cool, they would sit around and get drunk on cheap wine like Ripple or Annie Green Springs or something. That's the kind of stuff people would drink back there, or Tyrolia. If we were really sophisticated back then, you'd get some like Parmesan. I think it even had a cork, right? Parmesan wine, and it would be, you could watch it from about, I don't know, 9 until midnight or something in 1975 on cable access. And it wasn't a very sophisticated game. It is amazing. Ah, okay. Fun. Well, we have fun playing it, and we're doing our show. We've been doing our show now for way over a year, I think. I don't know, it might be one of like the longest lived. Holy cow. Congratulations. That's really cool. What character did you play, or what was your, you probably had more than one. What was your favorite character that you've played? We'll just have a real quick chat here, and then I've got like 5 minutes left or so. So let's talk about that. Did you really? Okay, that's, so did I. Up until recently, every character I played, I always played a cleric. Divine Soul Sorcerers, yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't be surprised to find out that I actually have played World of Warcraft forever, and I always play a holy priest. Of course, I have to be an undead. I have to be a little bit not to type. But yeah, I always played a cleric, and I sometimes, clerics, they have some, well, sorcerers do too. You can do some naughty things as well as heal your party members. So occasionally that would happen. I'm just cleaning this up. This is the stand for the Porco Rosso minifig, which is a pretty nicely detailed minifig. I'm going to have fun painting that. Yeah, they are a lot of fun. And what I used to say about the cleric is the power to heal is also the power to destroy. So occasionally I would go rogue, not as a rogue, but just kind of like I'd bring out the damaging spells, and sometimes I would. Let's just say that the other party members, the other players, didn't always know what to expect. They accused me of being chaotic good. Anyway, it was fun to play. I'm going to be wrapping up for today. I haven't taken a break, and I have. This was coffee, so you might imagine that I might need a break. But I'll be back on Wednesday at about 10, and I'll be working on the radiators, the parts for the hull of the Savoia, and the detail, and hopefully finishing up the cart. So I'll have an actual finished piece. So thanks for joining in, and see everybody on Wednesday at more or less 10 as I continue the slow-moving saga of the construction of the Savoia S.21. Thanks, and see you then.